Hey, Charlie and Crissy here with the Cooking Up GTM podcast. So, Crissy, I want to hear about it. You went to the Winning by Design Impact Summit yesterday. How was it?
It was good. It was nice to get out above anything else, and I got to catch up with a lot of folks that I hadn't seen in a while that I worked with in the past. But um, yeah, as you can imagine, a big topic was AI, amongst other things. Like there was some great kind of content around um, some of their growth, like forecasting for growth the right way and things like that, which
Did
they
it
call
still
like
have an
growth.
AI component, or was there actually people talking about something that didn't have anything to do with AI for a bit? Because it's kind of interesting, actually. I like it.
That didn't have AI because it was more well, I guess, yeah, it didn't, but it could have. But around growth governance and kind of how you can take your different kind of uh uh, basically where some models for growth fall flat because in some ways you need to invest in order to see growth, and how do you account for that in your modeling and things like that. Anyway, it was that part, I think, from Winning by Design. It was kind of an interesting thing. They even created like a magazine that I'm going to dive into. It's like within arm's reach, but too far, but I would show it. But it was really cool. I feel like it had a really high level as in a sense, like there's a lot of great titles of people there and executives. And it was interesting to kind of hear everyone's thoughts around AI. That I do think that still was like the main kind of focus. And there was
So, yeah,
conversation.
what is the consensus view? Like, what were some of the main talking points that everyone was going through?
Well, I think one thing is probably very obvious is that everyone's still trying to figure it out. Like I think it so much has happened even since January, right, with AI. And so I think there was a little bit of like a kind of a thread of people unsure of feeling a lot of pressure to use AI and to do AI, which is the phrase that I hate, but from like their VC and their CEO and so forth. And then I think folks probably like the content because it was trying to give them ideas. Okay, well, how, like, where do I focus and how do I do that? But I will say from across the board, at least even from the audience, I could tell that that was weighing on everyone's mind. And also, um, the one of the first things is like, well, how do I make the case for AI? Because one, I have to actually know what type of results I'm going to be getting. Some in some ways to ask for budget to do those things. And it's almost like you actually need to make the investment and then tell people what outcomes you hope to get and that you're going to like measure those and then show the success. So I think there's some orgs that are maybe more willing to want to do that, where others maybe don't understand. It's like kind of the marketer's dilemma in general. Like you have to ask for budget and then you have to prove your ROI. I think it's the same way because with everything being token based and so forth, I think people are like, well, it can get really expensive. And if I have to get new tools, it's also really expensive. Um, and so there was a conversation, but I think the key thing there was like to focus on what are the business outcomes you're trying to get to. One person, I think her name is Amy Kramer. I think she was one of the, or maybe it was someone from Vista, but they had a great quote where he said, yeah, I think it's like companies can go broke trying to do everything, so you need to focus. And I think that's like remains true for like everything, but especially now with AI. And I'll add on top of that, I think you can create a lot of misalignment and slop, which was like a big thing too, and bad work. And when you are trying to do so much in silos, and alignment was also kind of a big focus. for one of my favorite panels. And they had mentioned that now, even more so, it feels like alignment's even harder. I think because now each of the different kind of teams within go to market are feeling this pressure to kind of use AI themselves, or, um, uh, you know, it, there was just some issues around the same old thing. Like, alignment takes time, it takes resources, very slow. Um,
Lots of
uh,
pilots probably running in different teams and different people with different tools, and maybe a lot
yeah.
of duplication of work. And yeah,
Another quote I liked is Hillary Headley said, "Alignment is an energy vampire." It'll just like suck the energy out, and so of like what the team is trying to do. It's why alignment is so hard. And so when you're running with like lean teams, a lean budget, it's going to make alignment even harder, but it is still the most important thing to do. So I think the I think the key takeaway that I hope people took with is like, focus on what true business outcomes you want, what your goals are as a business, where you see kind of the areas of opportunity. And I think a big part of what I saw from a use case perspective, and a lot of the ones that we talk about to start as low hanging, is around the sales process. So, how to take the busy work out for sales, how to do things like account prioritization, how to help with deal support, like pre meetings, post meeting follow up, so forth. Customer support, not customer upsell or expansion, but customer support. And then really like how they can augment your processes with AI instead of just replacing all the process with AI, which I agree that is an easier place to focus. Where if we're take I know everyone wants to get to this, having an autonomous agent to own a whole process of their go to market, but I do think that's very aspirational, and there's a lot of trust you need to put in there, and then you figure out where do I build the agent, and like how do I host that, so I think that point of like, actually, let's just figure out, and we talk about this like almost like our level 3, but can you just augment some of your processes that you already have and make it better, but with AI? And so that was
so
kind of the
obviously
key takeaway too.
events are great for all the networking and stuff, but really you want to come away with like a few actionable things, right, to implement. So maybe don't need to come up with three, but if there was one thing that you learned from that event yesterday that you're going to implement either for a client or for CS2, what would it be?
I will say that and this isn't against like the event. I will say I wanted a little bit more like brass tacks, like things that I could see, like, okay, that's exactly what I would do. And I think some people were asking for that as well in the audience.
It also
Um,
wasn't an event for,
it
it
wasn't
was
an
like
event
more of a
for
senior exec
tactical.
leadership. Like it wasn't like an
Yes,
ops, for operators. So I could see how it was at that level. And maybe
I
that's the
think.
takeaway. You're gonna is in our content, how can we be as specific
Yeah.
as possible? Because we are talking to people that want to know, like, okay, cool, you say account research, what does that actually mean in practice? Like
Mhm.
show me that working.
They're the top use case that maybe the most people went into depth on, I think, for me, was a little bit of a letdown, because it's just like the obvious one. Everyone's like, use it to build your ICP and keep iterating on that as things change and give it the context that, and in some ways I think that yes, you should do that. um but then also when we think about like what data is the AI being trained on to create that ICP, there's probably a bit more like nuance you need to eke out of that, because in some ways for some of these companies and startups, it's not where they've won in the past. It's sometimes a bit aspirational. Where do they want to go next, and who fits that persona? And then also, if you're then, it's not really telling them maybe anything more than what they already know. I think it's a step down from that and trying to figure out like, what are your micro audiences that you can go after, what signals pair to those people, and then um how can you change your marketing for that? And so I think there was an element of that there, but I still think that folks are getting more giving more of that like more general or generic use case that I think could be expanded even more. Yeah.
Well, I think it comes back to what you said at the beginning. Everyone's still trying to figure a lot of this stuff out,
Yeah.
and a lot of people aren't maybe in our position where they're maybe where we're working with at any one time. We have about 30 clients that are all experimenting with this, and we're seeing each of these practical examples on the ground level and the minutiae of each one, which is awesome. Now, so you also had probably one of the most San Francisco experiences, right? We live down, for people that don't know, we live in the South Bay, kind of Willow Glen, San Jose area. Crissy took the train up to San Francisco for this event. And of course, on the train back, you end up meeting someone from OpenAI and having a chat about AI for an hour on the train back. So
Yeah.
what was your number one takeaway from that conversation?
Like so many takeaways from that conversation. It was almost like that was a mini session itself. So it was like very random that it even happened because I just happened to sit in front of someone because I needed a table for my laptop. And then I just had to ask him a question about the train because I hadn't taken the train in a long time. And then we started talking, and he was just like, "Oh, I live in Los Gatos and I live in San Jose." Da, da, da. And then he had a Waymo backpack. So I was like, "Oh, you work at Waymo?" And he's like, "No, I work at OpenAI." And I thought that that was just I didn't want to like pry and be, and then he asked me, "Well, what do you do?" And then I started talking to him, and so he had done some of the testing simulation at Waymo. He does some of the testing the models at OpenAI. But yeah, we talked about a lot of things. But one of the really interesting things that he said that I think it is around how fast the pace of AI is moving with models, and to keep that in mind as you're building, because if you build something with a certain AI model now, it's likely that's going to be outdated or change like really quickly. And so you might need to go back and review anything that you built, or also you maybe need to innovate on that because the models right now are, great, but think about how short of a time span that has been. And he said like they're probably going to be incredible like in 3 years. So and probably
Or the
along
one
that
you've
way it's
got.
going to change so fast.
Well, I've thought about it because we build automations, right? And some of them leverage AI and they're pinging the API for like OpenAI or Claude. And then over time, those model you have to like choose which model to use when you're using it through the API. And over time, some of those old models get retired. So at a minimum, you need to make sure that your automation is still working and the API is still working, because you're not using a model like this, an old GPT model that's been retired. And then on top of that, trying to make sure that it's still working the right way with the new model. Sometimes
Yeah,
even like 4.7 Opus was kind of like a bit of a, you know, some people say it got worse. So like, do
we did
you
talk about
migrate
that,
to that?
and I think
So
he's
there's a
probably,
whole,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, he works for OpenAI, so of course
OpenAI.
he's going to
Yeah,
say that one
but he was
gets
actually
worse.
very very honest in terms of like, yeah, he's very neutral, I would say.
That's good.
But
Probably
um
looking for a job at Anthropic as we speak. Anyway, let's move on to that's very interesting, and I just love how it's like the most San Francisco thing to happen.
I
Although actually,
know
I saw someone on, I think it was it a podcast or was it LinkedIn? It might have been LinkedIn, saying how they visited San Francisco and they were in the gym and half the people in there were working out while vibe coding with Claude Code at the same time. Well, that was also
that's
very
probably
San
fake.
Francisco to happen. Yeah, I'm sure it's partly exaggerated, but honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I've thought about it. I've thought about having the laptop open because a lot of times you're just like letting it do its thing, pressing enter sometimes, and like if you're working out, like you could probably kill two birds with one stone. I decided not to do it because I'm, not diabolical, but it is. That sounds like something that probably does happen.
You're probably
Next
asking the
time we're
wrong
into the
person
city,
because I feel like gym time is sacred, and that
well,
hurts me.
exactly. Next time we're in the city, I'll peek into the window of a gym and see if that's true or not. Anyway,
In my opinion, I have
talking
a
about
feeling
next
that none of
time.
those people are working out. But yeah.
Talk about next time we're going to be in the city. We are going to be at the Demand and Expand conference next week. So looking forward to seeing a lot of people we've we've known over LinkedIn in the flesh. It's going to be fun. Anyways, let's move on to the next topic here. So I'm going to bring, we're going to get Claire to share or to overlay this. I'm going to share my screen quick around something that I saw on LinkedIn that I thought would be a great conversation here. So this is Florin. I'm going to maybe mispronounce the last name, Tatulia. Do you think I got that right? Anyway, the post is very short. If you're not watching this, go-to-market engineering is a sub-function of RevOps. Yes, the tooling and methods have changed, but at a fundamental level, it's the same work that RevOps has always been doing. Agree. Now, there are 80 comments on this. I do think it'd be kind of interesting to skip through some of this. I would say I'd maybe need to get AI to go through every single comment, but it's pretty split. I mean, some people are saying, that's how I think about it. Mostly agree. I agree. Some people saying it depends. Josh Norris agreed, been saying this for 3 years. Karim saying this is the other way around. Now, or Kellen, just no. Ops is downstream of strategy. Jordan Crawford, who's got some great content right now. This is incorrect. No one's ever hired me to do RevOps stuff. I never report into RevOps. A GTME's job is to work backwards from outcomes and build tools to help the company get there, not to maintain the database, determine the tech stack, and orchestrate access and stuff. You'll be silly to make your GTME report into RevOps. Okay.
Interesting.
Now, I also want to say like a little bit to kick this off, and Crissy, I'd love to get your take. Mm-hmm. Before I give my take, I just want to say this is an argument as old as time in ops land, right?
Yeah.
Before it was like, should marketing ops be in RevOps? Should RevOps even be a thing? Should you consolidate teams? Should you have each ops team report into the business unit? And generally, our take has always been, just stop arguing about this.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it matters less than how you have built the full system of alignment, a roadmap, a shared roadmap, who you're hiring on the team, how they report and kind of discuss and align with different stakeholders. Because if you move one person from the business team to the ops team, the other way around, what you're gaining in alignment, you're losing in alignment on the other side. So that's always been our take for the marketing ops report into RevOps debate, go-to-market ops, etc. Now, Crissy, do you think this thing that still applies with go-to-market engineering? Is it the same thing? Or is there something unique that they should or should not report into the ops team? And then the other question I want to answer here as well is, what is the function of that? Because I think Jordan did raise a good point there. There are different things, go-to-market engineering, than the ops side, right? So what do you think?
Man, it's so hard because this is the reason why it's like not worth like kind of fighting over, but I do think it's a little bit of an it depends kind of situation. I will say out of all the comments, like his probably has the most compelling case for like just a differentiation, not so much, and to me, that's not so much a reporting structure differentiation. It's just like a focus change because
it's a job description. It's the role.
It's a job description. Like not everyone in RevOps needs to have the same job description. Not everyone who reports into a person needs to have the same purview or job description. And but I do think that because of the nature of what a GTME is doing, one, they're leveraging tech, they're working with people, they're creating process. That's all operations, right? People, process, tech, right? That's operations. And now, whether or not you have a RevOps team, a go-to-market ops team, or whatever, it does make sense for that person to work closely with that team or report into a leader for that, because all the rest of that team is still building process, working with those same people, um, you leveraging the tech or even opening up the APIs to enable those connections for that technology. And so they should be working closely with each other. I think for the thing that I'm starting to, and I do think that out of everyone who maybe should be owning go to market AI, people who have a background in operations or anything close to operations is the most
People who
likely
aren't
to
going to
succeed.
F things up, right?
Right.
The people that have the technical skills not to just blow through your API limits, delete the database, like people who have that understanding to then leverage the tool the right way. 100%.
The thing that I don't like right now too, it's almost like, the way that AI just speaks so confidently about stuff. I almost feel like that's even given this everyone this like air of like feeling like they're an expert on things
Oh boy, yeah.
and talking about them like so confidently. I That's the thing that like just kills me a little bit because and someone mentioned it too yesterday, I think on one of the panels is like you need to be an expert, like a true expert, or else it's just gonna fail because like AI can get things wrong. AI can convince themselves that like yellow is green if they really wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, so you need some type of judicious, like, kind of experience where, like, there's a person who knows how to tell the AI what to do. Um, One of the Chabo people mentioned that. And in some ways they're talking about like, how like marketers say like the biggest advantage that they have is taste. Um, for I think go to market ops, like and they mentioned this too, their head of sales, like taste doesn't have to mean like does something look good
Branding or yeah.
or branding or anything. Taste can be what is the best process for a salesperson? What's a good user experience for them? What is the best way to architect
It's a good point.
automation and what tool to use? That's taste. And an AI a lot of the time is just going to try and figure out what is a way to do something, not like what is that nuance of what is the best way to do that? What's the most elegant way to do something like that? Da, da, da. So, um, what insights do I need to be looking for? Not just pulling out very obvious insights, right? And so I still
So
think that
then,
operations people will have more of that like kind of general knowledge. Do I think that it has to be just an ops person become a GTME? No. But I think working and the people that are more best suited for that would be because they understand um the data set and the implications and so forth. I do like the idea though, and I think that this is hard because it means you'd have to hire more people, but having like go to GTMEs that have also more than just one focus of GTME. It's almost like then individual focuses of GTME, like the outbound GTME, right? I think a lot of people just think outbound when they think of GTME, but there's also other things like, oh, what about the enablement and sales process in general? That could maybe just be another GTME that just focuses on that. Or a GTME who is working alongside the demand gen team and they're figuring out things that maybe they want to build or do to make their campaigns more effective. Also, and like, and so in some ways, I'm like, well, is that even a GTME or is it that we're going to keep our same roles, but there's just going to be an element of AI, like an AI component as part of our job recs that's mandatory. And then it's not even a GTME anymore. It's just you're a go to market ops person. And then that is something that
well,
you're
yeah.
doing.
So, so I liked what Jordan said, but the thing I think it's not that I disagree with it, but it's like
He's
I don't think
belittling
it's
what RevOps is a little bit,
no.
in my
Well,
opinion.
that yes, but also he said a GTM's job is to work backwards from outcomes and build tools to help the company get there, not to maintain the database, determine the tech stack, and orchestrate access and stuff. However, if a GTME's goal, well, first off, ops people should always be focusing on outcomes. We've been talking about this for like 10 bloody years. Like,
I know.
have a roadmap, focus on outcomes, and a lot of the best people that we work with, or the way that we work, or a lot of the people out there, in ops roles do focus on that. But the thing is, though, to get to those outcomes, okay, let's have a simple outcome, pipeline in maybe a certain business segment or whatever. To get to that, you're going to need a tech stack, a database, coordinate access and stuff. So if this is the real thing we're actually discussing here is if you have just one hire available, should it be a GTME or like an ops person? Because honestly, you actually need both of those. You need all of that function because you can't do the cool, fun GTME stuff without a good foundation. And the foundation, in the way that Jordan's describing this, is kind of owned by ops. So there's a lot of overlap between these. And to get to that outcome, sometimes you do need a clean database. Sometimes you do need to make sure access is the right way and have guardrails. Sometimes you do need to implement a new tool. So I would say there is a lot of overlap between go-to-market ops and go-to-market engineering. Where they sit in the org chart is less important than how you've actually defined those roles, right? If you have the ability to have multiple people on the team, you want to define those roles in the right way. And the way that you kind of skew things is go-to-market engineering should get as close to the customer as possible, right? As close to like executing the full all the way through ultimately, right? So like they're not just, setting up the tools so marketers can do their job. They're actually like kind of being marketers themselves or being salespeople and ultimately like engineering like the full end-to-end process there. But you could actually just tell your go-to-market ops team to do that too. And they actually, if they have the capacity, should be able to do that. You don't actually have to hire a go-to-market engineering person. So it's all down to like how you define the role and how you build your roadmap and try and get to those outcomes versus a lot of this debate around like job title, team structure and stuff like that. I'm not saying it's not important, right? Like for CS2, we're a go-to-market ops agency and we have a go-to-market engineering team and they're building up a specialist domain knowledge around the latest and greatest AI tools, how to execute the full kind of customer experience from all the way from like, inbound, outbound, sales process, all of that stuff. So, but at the same time, our go-to-market ops client leads and our solutions architecture team that does a lot of our Salesforce BI and architecture work, they are all working on similar problems, right? They're all contributing. So we shouldn't think about it in this siloed way. We should think about every company needs to sit down and think about what are you trying to achieve? Let's get the right people in place with the right job description and enable them in the right way. And whether one person reports into ops team, whatever, like that's probably going to be very fluid at the company and it's going to be down to like personal preference, probably for leadership at the end of the day. And we don't really need to debate it. That's my take.
Yeah. I don't want to harp on too much, but I'm going to add one thing that I just like remembered that happened at the panel yesterday. Someone from like they're talking about like what type of hires you should have. And of course, like the person from Insight Partners, which they support companies that have either been public and gone private again, or sorry, Vista. And so he's like, yeah, you need to have a go-to-market engineer. You're going to have four deploy engineers. You're going to have and other people like this person on the marketing team and that person RevOps and da da. And then they asked one of the partners who they support, Series A. She's like, well, most of the companies I work with don't have that luxury. But I will say the hire that they should have is an ops person, and where they should focus on is the foundation. And that first foundation should be tracking their funnel and then all the way through to like pipeline and revenue.
Yep.
And that's the foundation that you need at minimum, and you should do it then. When I literally wanted to like go up there and hug them,
Give them
that
a hug,
person.
yeah.
And then also Hillary Headley added on, and if you think that is a nice to have, you're wrong, because now being on the other side, every VC wants to see that data and they're going to ask you for it. So,
I mean, yeah. So
yeah,
this is, go check out our go-to-market ops framework. Maybe Claire can throw it up on the screen now. That the foundation in that framework is what we're talking about when we say foundation. I know it sounds very abstract, right? But you can go look at that. I'm not going to walk through it. We've got other podcasts. And then above that foundation, you've got a unified data model which is going to help you understand how everything is working. It's the data model for reporting. And then you have how do you distribute that data through analytics for your team to track their KPIs, then get better. And then, and I mean, it's not even like you ever complete that foundation, but like that's the core of what you need. And then you can build on all the fancy, fun AI stuff, go-to-market engineering stuff, Claude Code, agents, and everything on top of that. But it's like you can't do it the other way around. So yeah, if you only have one person, don't hire a go-to-market engineer before you've hired a go-to-market ops person. Get the go-to-market ops person in first, who can do a bit of go-to-market engineering, get the foundation in place, and then scale up your team from there. Next.
Do you want to go through the next topic?
Yeah, let's do it. So do you want to tee it up?
Yeah, we were kind of talking about a little bit about this morning, but kind of the discussion of everyone's trying to own like the agent kind of layer. And I think I talked about Hockey Stack, pivoted to more agents. There's Agent Force, there's Notion agents, there's Actively AI, Rocks, and whatnot. But is it worth investing in that, or what will happen when that happens? Is it going to be something where you can like easily switch between like one agent to another because now like they're all competing against each other? Yeah. So just wanted to get your take, because I know this is something that you've been thinking about.
Yeah, I think the question is the agent layer defensible, because every company is moving into that agent layer.
Yeah.
So, and I'll give an example. Notion, we have Notion agents running at CS2. We've talked about one of them on the podcast before. One kind of scans all of our channels, looking for expansion opportunities across our client base, or where they might need to, grow within CS2 and get more work, and logs it in a database, etc. Now, when you think of an agent, what it is, and we can go back to our AI levels, maturity framework at the level 4, it has access to tools. So in this case, Notion has access to Slack, but we've got other Notion agents that have access to like Slack and Notion and ClickUp and our Fathom call recording, etc. And then, so it has access to tools, and then it has instructions, right? When this happens, do this. On this cadence, do that. Now, if you've got agents in several tools and they've all got access to the same tools and the same data, right? Because they're all building connectors, and they literally, all they are underneath that is a series of instructions, a skill essentially, markdown file or whatever. You can move that from one to the other very easily, right? Like if this simple Notion agent, to go back to that example, it's literally like every day, review all the messages from the last day, find any messages that have like this kind of content in them, and then add that to this database in this particular way. Now, that you could copy and paste that into another tool that has the same capabilities.
Yeah.
So I think it just raises like,
it's like a commodity at that point in some ways, because
how do they differentiate themselves beyond that? And I've got some ideas I can talk about in a second, but the question is, is it a commodity? Is it something that actually is very easily transferable? And how can they defend themselves? Because the last thing I'll say actually that's more interesting as well, Notion is coming out of the beta, their agent. So they're going to start charging. I think we've probably like beta. We're going to probably double our spend with Notion, going from like normal Notion per user pricing to token-based credit pricing with the agent. So it's a great move. They're doing it. They're going to get more money out of their client base. But we could very easily switch that out to Claude. And actually, we've even talked to Claire about like, we're going to monitor this. Potentially, we could just move this into Claude skills. So like, is it defensible? How can they differentiate themselves? How can they defend and retain clients at that level? Because we'll probably always use Notion, but the agents is different.
I think when it comes to this, it's interesting because, and I don't want to say it as a commodity, but when you think about like um, like a shirt or skincare or anything like that. It's like, what is the differentiation between when you buy something versus not and how much you're paying for it? It's usually down to like how it's made, what are the ingredients, like manufacturing, the marketing around it. Those are all at play here because you can easily just be like, I'm going to go use a different moisturizer. It's not like before where it's like changing tech where like your whole like CRM or something. That's a big change, right? There needs to be more than just this, oh, it has access to this tool. But people still make those decisions and know that they can change. But I think in some ways with AI, it's a bit hard too because it's all kind of leveraging a same similar models. So unless there was like a unique differentiation where they invested a lot of time
into
to
their model. Yeah.
make that model perfect for that use case, which would take a lot of time for that company to figure out themselves, that's going to be the only thing I think that would differentiate that from then this buy versus build kind of scenario. Um,
That's a tall ask, though, isn't it? Can
it
Notion
is.
build an AI better than Anthropic and OpenAI, even with a domain knowledge? I don't. I think they're still always going to go back to the main models, right? The bit that I think that probably can differentiate is, but I still think it could be tough, is the context layer. So, for
Yeah,
example, Actively AI, and if people haven't used it, and I haven't used Rocks, Crissy, so you tell me if it's the same. In the
barely used
platform,
it.
you have to build out um, context, right? So you're putting in like, who are your personas? Like the job titles, what they care about. You're putting in like information around your ICP. You're like writing all of this in. You're writing kind of how you want to prioritize accounts, what's important to you, all of this stuff. So that is very important, right? For a tool that is going to have an agent that's going to like review all of your Salesforce and other data sources, and then decide which accounts it's going to go after. It needs to know kind of what you care about. Um, so that context layer for our clients to use actively is in actively. That said, if there was a company like Rocks, right, it wouldn't be that difficult to copy and paste that persona information and all of that stuff into just another tool and plug it into Salesforce and have it do a similar thing. So it still doesn't seem that defensible. And then add on another step, which in the future, most companies are going to have probably like an Octave or something like that, which is just a context layer, which has the most up-to-date context that all of your AI agents and tools tap into when they need it. So if you did have a context layer built out and then agent, all it is a wrapper of ChatGPT or Claude
God.
and then access to your tools and instructions that you've given them, why wouldn't you just use Claude to do that, right? Like, so all these companies going very agentic, I could see a world where you build out agents in all of these kind of point solutions, and then you go, do you know what? I just need to centralize this and just put it all just into Claude. Now, I don't know if that definitely happens, and I'm sure Notion's getting good revenue out of Notion AI. I'm sure Hockey Stats pivoting into agents is probably going to be good. I've heard Salesforce is getting decent revenue out of Agentforce, and some people like it. Actively is doing well. All these companies are going to do well for a while, but like what I'm going to keep my eye on is how do they make it hard to stop using them? Like, what is the reason to be sticky
Yeah.
when they are just a series of instructions and connectors, a series of instructions and connectors and OpenAI and Claude, right? Like, what is defensible there? And if people have ideas, I'd love to hear them because I don't see it yet. Not saying these tools aren't worth investing in because they're great and they're getting you there quickly. Actually, that might be, now I might have
Yeah.
just kind of stumbled into it. The speed of getting the agent to market, like Notion, for example, make it so easy to get that agent in. So, but then once that speed evaporates and all these tools can do it, then it's like, then now what's next? What's the next defensible part? Do you have any thoughts? Like, what can you think of anything that's like going to keep you really sticky when there's 100 different companies you could choose to build a similar agent, or just go to the model providers themselves?
Usually in this case, I always lean to like brand affinity and like marketing, stuff like that. But I just are seeing that brand as like a thought leader for the thing. But like, I still don't think that that would be create stickiness in this case, in my
I think in
opinion.
the past, so like Salesforce is really sticky, right? For a few reasons. Number one, and you end up customizing the crap out of it. So, so much in there
Yeah.
that would be really hard to build into another CRM. Two, everyone knows how to use Salesforce, love it or hate it. So when you onboard reps, they just know. Agents are different, right? Agents are relatively, yes, they're not like easy to set up, but they're easier, right? They're like point solution. Every individual agent is kind of like a point solution. So I could maybe see a time when you have like 50 agents in Notion or 50 in Cell and in Agent Force. It would be there'll be high switching cost. But so maybe they just need to push you to just build, and that's the switching cost and makes it defensible. But even then,
I think what will probably happen though too is like when people realize how much upkeep and when you're trying to, and to your point, like the context part, keeping that up to date when you're having all these agents in different places, and ops people understand that, right? Every time you add on a new tool, what a burden. So then they don't get the attention that they need. They become less effective, stuff like that. So I think it's probably like, in my opinion, and I'm valid to change this opinion, like it could be those platforms that are saying, "Hey, we're going to help you build just overall your custom agents for your organization," like a Dust or I'm blanking on the one because it has a very generic name. It's like Workflow AI or something like that. I can't remember, but um, or
or just Claude managed agents,
or Claude managed
just
agents. Yeah, and and in some ways that can be super effective too because it's like one centralized place. Also, when we think about with these agents and agentic, it's like there's token based cost involved. And so if you're trying to keep a handle of this like cost and the bloat of that cost and stuff like that, having that across like 10 different platforms is probably less cost effective too, but also harder to manage than having it in like one place. In my perspective, and it's probably why with all these companies their way to innovate just building agents within their platform now seems great, but I can see like if you look at the market and still what they're being valued, those companies being valued, I think it's because they know the future is maybe like that can't scale well.
yeah, or people can just move those agents to a totally another platform relatively easily compared to the past, where moving from Salesforce to HubSpot would be a big pain for any scaled organization. But I guess maybe I think there probably is something to, if you do get a lot of agents built, that could end up being difficult to move. So it's when you've just got a handful of like relatively simple agents that would be very
Yeah.
easy to move, and there's going to be a tipping point there. But maybe there's going to be other parts, right, that create more stickiness. But
So
I
autonomous
don't see
agents, if they
massive
really
stickiness yet.
are doing what they're meant to do, where they're self-improving, if you have to try and it has all that history of self-improving, trying to move that means you're basically that it's like you're rehiring someone for that potentially. If it's actually
Correct.
doing what
That's a
it's
good
meant to
point.
do. So
If
if it's
they
owning
build
a
a
big
really
enough
good, yeah,
process, yeah. So that's another thing. So that's another that's probably like the closest argument that you could make for why it wouldn't be easy to just move. Yeah.
yeah, that's fair. That's actually a good point. Yeah, focus on their self-improvement cycle for sure, which is something that I think a lot of agentic tools haven't cracked the code on yet.
Yeah, agree.
It's still manual yourself. You have to go fix it.
Mhm.
Anyway, I think that's it. I think that's it for this week, right?
Yeah. All right. See you next week.
Yeah, we'll see everyone next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.